XLE Indian Lake. It's 8 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Northern Light for Friday, July 21st. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
Concert and fairgoers in New York may soon see cannabis products offered. The State Office of Cannabis Management approved a plan aimed at helping the state's legally licensed marijuana farmers.
The Cannabis Grower Showcases, we believe, are going to be a win for our consumers who will finally get access to legal regulated product across the state. A win for our farmers who have a significant amount of inventory that you want to help sell through.
One of the most storied racehorses of the last 50 years died from colic over the weekend in Saratoga Springs. Funnyside was adored by the public for being a blue-collar horse that came agonizingly close to capturing the 2003 Triple Crown.
It's like being an out-of-the-body experience is the best thing I can think about it. I could not believe my eyes. I was like, that's our horse out in front.
And we'll get you what you need to know for weekend plans. John Warren checks trail conditions in the Adirondacks, plus music and some of the events happening throughout the region. All of that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by St. Lawrence Health, whose affiliation with Rochester Regional Health means more patient access to specialty care, stlawrencehealthsystem.org. And by the Depot Theater, Westport, a professional equity theater in the Adirondacks, celebrating its 45th season. depottheater.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. Last week's severe rain and flooding impacted communities across New York, including many in the North Country. Amy Feiereisel has an update on rebuilding efforts.
After a severe weather event like the flooding in Vermont and northern New York last week, there's a lot of work to be done. Cleanup, restoration, rebuilding. This week, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services has been assessing damage in hard-hit communities in Clinton, Hamilton, and Essex counties. Destroyed homes, fractured roads, and extreme erosion have been reported in the central and northeastern Adirondacks, from Indian Lake to Saranac and Dannemora. Most roads closed by the flooding have been reopened, with a notable exception, Route 28N, which connects Newcomb and Long Lake. It's expected to reopen sometime next week. Of course, recovery takes money. Individual fundraising efforts are listed on the Long Lake website, and the Adirondack Foundation has activated its Special and Urgent Needs Fund to give financial support to towns and people hard hit by the flooding. They're taking donations and will be distributing money across the Adirondacks. That fund was originally established after Tropical Storm Irene. New York State also extended application deadlines from July 28th to August 11th for several resiliency-related state grants. That's to give impacted communities more time to apply for funds that support water infrastructure and flood mitigation. And it's not over yet. There could be more flooding this summer. Another round of heavy, scattered thunderstorms is predicted Friday afternoon, and a flash flood watch has been issued for all of northern New York. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
The heartbreak felt by farmers in several northeastern states after last week's floods include dairy farmers, fruit growers, and flower farms. The heavy rain came at the worst possible time when many plants were too early to harvest but are now too late to replant in the region's abbreviated growing season. Storms dumped up to 2 months' worth of rain in just a couple of days in parts of the region, surpassing the amount that fell when Tropical Storm Irene blew through in 2011, causing major flooding. Officials have called last week's flooding Vermont's worst natural disaster since floods in 1927. The flooding forced many Vermont farmers into tough choices, according to the State Secretary of Agriculture, Anson Tebbetts. Dairy farmers who found roads to processing plants impassable were forced to dump milk. Another problem is the loss of corn, a key source of food for the dairy industry. Thousands of acres were completely or partially underwater or flattened and unusable. According to Tebbets, flower farms in Vermont were also destroyed.
The Office of Cannabis Management approved a measure to allow cannabis to be sold at fairs, festivals, concerts, and other related events. From Albany, Karen DeWitt has the details.
Resolution number 2023-25 carries. Thank you.
The vote by the state's Cannabis Control Board helped solve a problem caused when state regulators got behind schedule in plans to open retail stores. Over 460 retail licenses have now been approved. That's after the board voted to allow 212 more licenses. But so far, just 20 stores have opened. That's left around 200 farmers who got licenses last year to grow cannabis stranded, with virtually no legal outlets to sell their crops.
We've certainly seen a lot of interest over the last few weeks.
The Office of Cannabis Management, or OCM's Director of Policy, John Kagia, told the board that the resolution will enact a growers' showcase. It will allow the sale of the farmers' products at the festivals, fairs, concerts, and other venues.
The Cannabis Grower Showcases, we believe, are going to be a win for our consumers, who will finally get access to legal regulated product across the state. A win for our farmers, who have a significant amount of inventory that we want to help sell through. And a win for our retailers, who can begin to seed the sales opportunities in the communities where they're ultimately going to be operating.
Kagia says the pop-ups will also help farmers directly connect with customers. The cannabis stands will first need approval from the local government where they'll be selling, and they can't be held in municipalities that have voted not to allow cannabis retail dispensaries. The rules also require a licensed retailer to work with up to 3 growers to sell at the outdoor events. The proposal was first introduced in May when Kagia said he had been given the go-ahead from a high level of authority to pursue the program. But it languished for the next several weeks, with an OCM spokesperson issuing a non-committal statement on July 5th about whether the program would go forward. Only one board member, Dr. Jennifer Gilbert Jenkins, professor of agriculture at SUNY Morrisville, raised some objections. Gilbert Jenkins, who's a consultant to hemp and cannabis farmers, asked for more guarantees that the growers will fully benefit from the events. She wanted sales to be limited to cannabis flower produced by the growers rather than edibles, which contain THC but are processed by others.
This opportunity to add value-added products in there is a very slippery slope. And it is incredibly important to me that these are not just pop-up dispensaries.
She eventually voted yes after Kagia and others agreed to immediately begin discussion on the details of the program and to add more safeguards for farmers. OCM plans to hold town halls over the coming weeks to go over details with growers and retailers. They say they are hopeful that the cannabis sales at the events could begin as soon as the end of the summer. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Members of the Village Board in Saranac Lake want an independent investigation into a dispute between the mayor and the outgoing village manager. Last week, Eric Stender announced his resignation after just a year on the job. The Adirondack Daily Enterprise reports that it followed an argument with Mayor Jimmy Williams. Local police investigated the incident but determined no allegations of violations of the law had taken place. But board members want an internal review to make sure no village policies were violated. The Enterprise reports that Williams accused trustees of holding an illegal meeting last weekend. An official with the State Committee on Open Government told the paper that only a court can determine if a violation of the public meetings law has occurred.
The Plattsburgh City Beach is back open for swimming. The city had ordered beachgoers to stay out of the water earlier this week after tests showed elevated levels of E. coli. An E. coli infection can cause diarrhea, stomach cramping, and nausea, according to the Mayo Clinic. The city said yesterday that it got a clear result from water testing conducted Tuesday, allowing swimming to resume. City staff test water quality at the beach every 2 weeks while it's open from the end of May to September.
A 16-year-old wrestler from Gouverneur has won a national championship. Zoe Griffith, who will be a junior this fall, competed in the U.S. Marine Corps USA Wrestling Junior National Championship last weekend. According to Channel 7 News, Griffith won the women's freestyle title for her weight class on Sunday. About 740 wrestlers from across the country are participating in the tournament in Fargo, North Dakota. Griffith told Channel 7 News that she hopes girls wrestling will be sanctioned in New York by the time she's a senior. She wants to be a state champion.
Multiple winning tickets from Wednesday night's Powerball drawing were sold here in the North Country. A second prize ticket valued at $1 million was purchased at Sliders Food Mart in Clayton. 2 third prize tickets were sold at Joe's Quick Marts in Watertown and Stewart's Shops in Elizabethtown. Those were each worth $50,000. And a third prize Power Play ticket worth $100,000 was sold at the Cornerstone Drug and Gift Store in Rouse's Point. The next Powerball drawing is Saturday night. The estimated jackpot is $20 million. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:11. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, John Warren checks trail conditions in the Adirondacks for us this weekend. Plus, we've got some music to preview an upcoming concert that's coming up right here on North Country Public Radio, which is your summer source for NPR news, regional stories, and features great music, friendly voices. We are glad you found this station. Help your summer station stay strong with a gift at ncpr.org/give. And thank you so much for your support.
Music by Zoe Knight in Potsdam. Check out more of Zoe's music on our website, ncpr.org/_. Northern Light is supported by Adirondack Foundation, helping people and families build a legacy of generosity for the Adirondacks. AdirondackFoundation.org, and by Cloud Splitter Foundation, acknowledging Blue Seed Studios, where artists, educators, and community members can learn and participate in artistic experiences. More at bluseedstudios.org.
One of the most storied racehorses of the last 50 years died over the weekend in Saratoga Springs. Funnyside was adored by the public for being a blue-collar horse that came agonizingly close to capturing the 2003 Triple Crown. Sackatoga Stables confirmed in a tweet that Funnyside died from complications due to colic. The horse was owned by a group of friends from Sackett's Harbor, not far from Watertown. And former NCPR reporter Brian Mann put together a profile of those friends back in 2003 when Funnyside retired. He reports that they got into the thoroughbred horse racing business on a whim that took them into the horse racing history books.
This story starts back in 1995 when John Constance and a group of high school buddies from Sackett's Harbor were looking for a new hobby.
We were just sitting around having a couple of cocktails, as we're often doing, and the idea came up to buy a horse, and from that day forward, our life has changed.
Constance is a retired optician and the former mayor of Sackett's Harbor. He and a half dozen neighbors, most still live on the same street, pitched in $5,000 apiece. They bought some thoroughbreds and were having a blast, but nobody took them seriously until they stumbled across an inexpensive gelding named Funnyside.
We got him kind of by accident, if you will, just luck.
They'd found an experienced trainer by then and a good jockey, and they even had uniforms. But co-owner Harold Kring, who runs a small construction company, says it was still just a small-town lark.
The colors that you see, the maroon and gray, that's our school colors from high school.
Then something marvelous happened. In 2003, Funnyside qualified for the Kentucky Derby.
Outside, they're coming down across the final furlong, and the gutsy gelding Funny Side has a narrow lead. Bobby Frankel's...
Harold Kring remembers watching the final stretch.
It was like being an out-of-the-body experience. It's the best thing I can think about it, because I can still see the horse running down the stretch, but it's like tunnel vision. Everything seemed cloudy around it, like everything was going in slow motion. I could not believe what my eyes. I was like, that's our horse out in front. I just kept waiting for something to fall apart.
But Funny Side actually pulled away in the final seconds, winning decisively.
And the gutsy gelding Funny Side has won the 129th Kentucky Derby.
He was bred in New York, and no New York bred had ever won the Kentucky Derby before, and he goes into Kentucky and beats all the blue bloods.
David Grenning is a veteran track reporter for the Daily Racing Form. At first, Grenning says, attention focused on Funny Side's quirky pedigree and his even quirkier owners. But then Funny Side won again at the 2003 Preakness.
His Preakness was a devastatingly easy victory. He really walloped him that day, and leading you to believe that, the Derby was no fluke and that this horse had a real chance to win the Triple Crown.
Funny Side wasn't able to repeat at the Belmont Stakes. Only 11 horses have ever managed that feat. The last was a horse called Affirmed in 1978. But Funny Side had become an icon, especially here in New York State.
I like because he's from our area, a local favorite.
Friday afternoon, this celebration in Saratoga Springs, marking Funny Side's retirement, Beatrice Jones is wearing a sandwich board decorated with Funny Side memorabilia.
I have giant pictures of when he won the Kentucky Derby. And then they named a street after Funny Side, beer after him, ice cream, and the horse even whinnies.
The guys from Sackett's Harbor watch as Funny Side is paraded one last time into the winner's circle.
Look at that beautiful horse coming out. Hear that crowd cheer?
Funny Side munches on a giant granola cake made to look like a Rolex retirement watch. Jose Santos, the jockey who rode Funny Side, has announced that he too is hanging up his colors.
I came all the way from Chile chasing a dream, and I got the dream, the American dream to win the Kentucky Derby once, and I did it with Funny Side.
As the party winds down, another race thunders past, more hopefuls chasing greatness. Harold Kring says he'll head home to Sackett's Harbor, knowing that their run was special.
We're the small guys in the game, and we came out on top with a horse that nobody thought had a chance to do anything.
Funny Side cost the guys from Sackett's Harbor just $75,000. He won purses totaling more than $3.5 million. Funny Side will now spend the rest of his days in a comfortable stable with a well-earned paddock all his own. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Brian Mann in Saratoga Springs.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up in just a minute, we've got a look at some of the events happening throughout the area, plus some music to preview some concerts coming up. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note, designing a space for a community to interact with birds. That's coming up at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Partly to mostly cloudy skies, scattered showers, a chance of storms today, about a 70-80% chance of scattered rain today, 60% chance of scattered showers tonight, Highs this afternoon, 70s, a low near 60 overnight tonight. Then tomorrow, about a 30% chance of scattered rain. Highs near 70, light winds out of the west on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Mostly sunny skies, highs in the upper 70s, low 80s. And we have mostly cloudy skies and 69 degrees in Canton right now. Here's John Warren with a check of outdoor conditions in the Adirondacks for this weekend.
Sunrise will be at about 5:30 and sunset at about 8:30. The high water and muddy trails advisory is still in effect, and recent heavy rains have washed out numerous roads, bridges, and trails and brought down considerable blowdown. Heavy rainfall remains possible through Saturday. Because our soil is already saturated, flooding could continue to be a problem. Watch the weather closely this weekend and avoid recreating near and in streams and rivers due to high waters, fast and powerful currents, and floating debris. Trails are very muddy, and stewards are asking hikers to avoid high-elevation trails to protect thin soils on summits. If you do go out, plan alternative routes and extra time in case you encounter problems with trails, roads, or water crossings, many of which will be difficult or impassable. Thunderstorms are possible as well, so stay off summits and open water during thunderstorms. If you can hear thunder, you can be struck by lightning. Waters around the region remain well above normal, some near or at flood stage. Waters are rising and will generally continue to rise through Saturday. Water temperatures remain warm, even for this time of year, mostly in the mid-70s. That's the temperature of Upper Saranac Lake and Mirror Lake. Most of Lake Champlain and Lake George are in the mid-70s, but some shallow bays are in the upper 70s, and the warmest waters around the region are near 80 degrees. Ironman Lake Placid is taking place on Sunday, so expect delays in Lake Placid, Keene, Jay, and Wilmington. Barker Pond Road on the Township 19 easement is closed due to a washout, as is Piney Ridge Road in the Sable Highlands easement. Trails in the southern half of the Faro Lake Wilderness are flooded and some bridges are out and others are expected to fail. Crane Pond Road is impassable there. And the hiker shuttles are still not running on Route 73. Those are the outdoor conditions in the Adirondacks this weekend. For North Country Public Radio, this is John Warren from the New York Almanac. Online at newyorkalmanac.com.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's about 8:22. I'm Monica Sandreski here with Todd Moe, and want to let you know about some of the haps throughout the region. Lots of events going on in the North Country. Coming up Monday night in Scroon Lake, it's Vintage Movie Night at the Strand. They're showing that classic thriller, Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. I grew up on this movie. All those great camera angles and the suspense. Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly, Raymond Burr. Theater owners Larry and Liz McNamara do a cool thing where they bring in Turner Classic Movies film critic Jeremy Arnold to analyze the film for a few minutes for audience goers, and he answers some questions. Here's a little bit from Jeremy Arnold.
My fondest hope is that for people who maybe don't see a lot of classic films from the 30s and 40s and 50s, if they come out to this and get a taste of what a beautifully entertaining world this world of classic film is, that they'll be inspired to go out and see more.
Rear Window, the showing is coming up Monday night at 8 at that Art Deco Theater, the Strand in Scroon Lake.
Maybe you'd like a cup of tea. Stop by the St. Lawrence University Permaculture Garden tonight from 7 to 8. Join Nature Up North and the folks at the Permaculture Garden to learn about some well-known garden plants that can be used to make tea. They'll be discussing tea-making techniques and talk about what plants are best for tea making. This is a free event open to everyone. All kids under 13 must be accompanied by an adult. The St. Lawrence Permaculture Garden is located right behind Commons College. That's 78 Park Street, and to the left of the Health Center on Park Street. You can enter the parking lot using the first driveway on your left when you're turning onto Lincoln from Park Street. Again, that's tonight, 7 to 8. Learn how to make tea from plants in the garden in Canton.
In Lake George Land Conservancy does a cool thing called the Discovery Series that includes themed hikes that run almost entirely throughout the year and is geared towards learners of all ages. Well, they have one coming up today. It's just coming up in about an hour this morning at Amy's Park in Bolton Landing. They're joining with a naturalist from Up Yonda Farm Environmental Education Center to learn about life below the water's surface. It's an easy hike, but will include some hands-on activities in wetlands and a stream. You can find out more from the Lake George Conservancy.
A lot of communities in the Adirondack North Country are going to be celebrating the solar eclipse event next April, and you can join a conversation about the solar eclipse, with special guest speaker Seth McGowan, president of the Adirondack Sky Center and Observatory. Learn about the path of totality and what it means for Saranac Lake. That's next Tuesday evening from 5 to 6 at the Harrietstown Town Hall Auditorium. It's open to everyone. The solar eclipse will happen on April 8th of next year. And there's a lot of solar eclipse enthusiasts in the area, and you can find out more next Tuesday, 5 to 6 at Harrietstown Town Hall Auditorium.
Always love hearing from Seth. He's delightful. We'd be remiss, too, if we didn't let you know about what's going on at the Seagull Festival this weekend. Their latest presentation, the musical theater piece, A Little Night Music, set in the early 20th century aristocratic Sweden. This charming musical by Stephen Sondheim features that beautiful song, Send in the Clowns. That's going on this weekend through tomorrow night. You can find out more at seagullfestival.org. Also, don't forget concerts throughout the region. There are so many wonderful summer concert series. I think of the summer concert series in Peru, New York, also going on at the Norwood Village Green Concert Series, also at the great Camp Sagamore and Racket Lake, and in Saranac Lake, too. On Wednesday nights throughout the summer in Riverside Park, there are free shows starting at 7 o'clock, including this coming weekend by the group Mo Mojo. They bring Zydeco and the spirit of New Orleans to Saranac Lake, and we've got a preview. This is their song, Mo Mojo, Zydeco. Mo Mojo Zydeco by the group Mo Mojo, who's bringing Zydeco and the spirit of New Orleans to Saranac Lake this coming Wednesday night at Riverside Park as part of their Music on the Green summer concert series. The show starts at 7. That is it for the show for the day. Morning Edition continues in just a minute. Then join us later today at lunchtime for a conversation about one of the first Black superstars in classical music who died last week at the age of 77, remembering piano virtuoso Andre Watts, who rose to fame at just 16. Terry Gross's 1985 interview with him is coming up on Fresh Air at lunchtime today between noon and 1 o'clock right here on NCPR. If you miss an episode of the show, never fear. You can listen back to the archive any place you get your podcasts. And while you're there, subscribe to our newest podcast, The Howl Story Slam, hosted by Ethan Shanty. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. Be well.